you ever felt.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
To kind of know a little bit of your background as far as like who your mother is and to see like what she did. I mean, obviously that was before I was born, but if you read some of the articles about that, I'm so curious as to what that felt like. For those that don't know, your mother, Shirley Bell, was the voice actor, and actor, I guess, at the time, because it was radio for the show My Little Orphan Annie.
Yeah, she's Little Orphan Annie.
Little Orphan Annie. And so, but in reading about that, like I wasn't aware, obviously, because it's a different time. But that was coming out of the Great Depression and things around that time. It was like that was your escape, right?
It was pretty
like,
much the decade.
Yeah,
from 30 to 40. That's when she played Annie, and then they yanked the thing off the air at 40. So she started when she was 10 years old. She finished when nobody ever said thank you or there's the door or, they just cut it all off after 10 years, and that was that. So she played it from when she was 10 till she was 20. And then she went on to meet my dad and be a stay-at-home mom, for pretty much.
But she didn't realize until she was in her 80s what an impact she made on children back then. Well, she didn't realize what she was doing. She was just supporting 5 families during the Depression.
Yeah, well, that was some of the things, I think I read some parts out of the LA Times or New York Times, when she passed. And you just don't think about, like, my generation doesn't think about that. We don't have, I guess we have so much. We have an abundance of content. We have an abundance of music. We have an abundance of actors. And we're just so immersed in, like, I mean, you can get content at literally the flip of a button. And, but for things like that, when there wasn't as much of abundance and there was only a few shows, like, people as a whole, as a society, kind of became ingrained in her character. And they may not have known her, because they couldn't see her, but The
Christmas Story. Yeah. They have that. Yeah. My mother got really mad about that. She's like, because, the kid goes into the bathroom to decode. He can't wait. What's it going to be? And he gets into it and it says, drink your Ovaltine. and he's furious. Well, my mom was furious too, because she said they would never do that. Our show would never do that. There was always a message in there.
Sure.
I said that.
It was a
precursor
Mom, to the next show.
They wrote it that way for the movie because it's funnier.
Sure.
I'm like, relax. It's all okay.
Yeah.
But her book came to pass because I found something online and I started reading it to her about Orphan Annie because I had some questions. And after I finished reading, she goes, it wasn't like that. This was wrong and that was wrong and that was wrong. And I go,
what wasn't like that? You mean like the
book? Experiences of she started doing radio at age 6. Mm-hmm. Now, you better be able to read pretty well because that's all you've got is your script. At 6 years old, she was doing all boy characters, girl characters. There were no other child actors at that time when she first started. And anyway, then when they were casting, there was nobody else to choose. They knew her and they knew what she could do and how she could take direction and whatever, because everything was live. There were no do-overs.
No do-overs.
And it's, how terrifying.
Sure. Oof, that would be rough.
But, she didn't get a lot of, they were happy to take her money, but she didn't get a lot of accolades from her family. Mm. Or it was just sort of expected of her to bring in the money because she had a job that actually supported, all the cousins and all the family, and she never saw a dime of it. And she never understood that what she did impacted all kinds of kids all across the country, but especially the girls. Mm-hmm. There had never been a role model, a child girl mm-hmm. that was a badass, and Orphan Annie was. She always went on adventures and always got herself out of trouble. And, she was a very strong little girl. Well, so was my mom.
Sure.
They never drove her to work. She had to be there 5 days a week, even sick. It just was a snowstorm or whatever. She had to get there and be there on time for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
There was no driver's licenses back then. So at 10, she could drive.
She actually, would drive to work if somebody's car was, not being occupied.
So when you were talking to her about kind of the specifics the questions you had about a Little Orphan Annie, was it the book being written, or was this after?
That was pre the book.
Okay, all right. And so her truths about the process, like what was so different that, how, I guess what I'm trying to ask is that you kind of had this notion, how did you have your view of her experience, and then where did she come to say, like she's got a completely different, you know what I'm saying? Like, had you just in passing and growing up with her, and you kind of made these assumptions as a little girl, and now you're an adult and you're having these conversations with her, or how did that come to be?
Well, I've always asked her questions. Yeah. In fact, she taught me all the old standards and got me interested in that kind of music. And she sang all day long. She wanted to be a band singer, which in those days was, how exciting.
Sure.
And she was a good singer. And, my dad, he was like, no.
Yeah.
He was very conservative and very traditional of that generation. And so she never really got to shine the way she wanted to, because the Annie thing to her just was work. That's work. I got to go to work today. And I don't think she got a whole lot of pleasure out of it.
Yeah.
She did some personal appearances. I still have the red curly wig that she would wear.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've got some incredible, I have her scrapbook. Mm-hmm. She kept a scrapbook that was a huge thing. And you can't believe the magazine and newspaper articles and stuff like that. And she just, when it was over for her, she just sort of pushed it aside. She never analyzed it, but I didn't. And I was singing since I was born, it feels like.
Yeah.
I used to sit on the floor. They had one big speaker. and I'd memorize all kinds of music. And it developed my ear for pitch and how you sing. And it just was a huge influence. And then she would walk around singing these songs. And I did a CD in 2002 called Never Too Late. And I dedicated it to her, because without her doing all those things, she impacted my life as a singer more than anybody.
Sure.
Any artist.
Was she as supportive as she could be in your path on singing, or was it kind of?
Oh no, my mother was like my biggest fan. I mean, she was always encouraging. I think there was a tinge of, I wish I could have done that.
Sure.
Like that would have been fun.
Yeah.
But she was happy for me.
No, I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, I wonder that sometimes where, like a child might have a famous, mother or father, or, a parent, and if there's, I wouldn't, maybe not jealousy, right? But maybe it's like almost living vicariously through the child or something of that nature, you know. But on the flip side, I haven't personally experienced it, so I'm really curious as to like your view of it. Is that, I guess maybe for lack of better terms, did it ever feel like those were like gigantic shoes to fill, or was it? I mean, you probably didn't know your mom, and you know, in that element, you probably knew, obviously, that your mom was that child star. But did that have an impact? Like, did you ever think that, God, these are gigantic shoes that I have to fill, or it never impacted you like that?
Mm-mm. I couldn't wait to get out of high school.
I think that's most people. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just, biased.
And when I got out of high school, I went to college for like a semester, and I went, I want to be a singer, and this is not helping me to do that.
Yeah.
So I think I had my first live gig, and I was 19, just 19, and I was a singer with a trio behind me, and the piano player came up to me after the gig and said, have you ever thought about singing radio or TV commercials? I never thought how they were made. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
It wasn't, they were the things that sent you running to the bathroom if you had to go in between, so you missed the show. There was no DVRs to pause it or, so she, anyway, I had the gig. He said, come see me on Tuesday. I'm doing a jingle. See what it's all about. See if you like it. So I come in, and you'll appreciate this because you have your own studio. There's a booth where the people visiting or the engineer and, everybody else sits. And then the studio is like, you don't go in the studio unless you are absolutely 100% sure it's time. Like you can open the door and you're not ruining a take.
Sure.
or making somebody pretty angry. I knew nothing of any of that. So he's the only one I knew. So I walked in, thank God they weren't doing a take. And I sat down on the piano bench, and he's like, you got to get out of here and go in there. Nobody's, and of course I'm 19. So,
Sure.
All the other musicians, if anyone has ever hung out with musicians, they are a very colorful bunch of guys.
Sure.
And, so I went in, I watched the whole thing, and I said, I want to do this. This is something. Because I've never liked to be the center of attention. I wanted to sing, and this was like the perfect job. You're anonymous. You're just a voice on a TV. Nobody's taking pictures of you.
Sure.
I don't know how people today with social media and all the stuff that goes on around them, people who really make it or are on their way up or whatever, the criticisms and the meanness, I couldn't have handled that. I had my own kind of shyness about it, and especially back then. And so I just was so happy at the thought this career existed. So he helped me make a demo tape, told me who to take it to, how many, there were, in those days, no electronic music. Think about that.
Sure.
No electronics at all. It all got done with acoustic instruments and, guitars had some effects, but
Sure.
they were pretty primitive.
Yeah, there was an electric recording software, right? It wasn't Pro Tools, or it wasn't, it was all to tape, and there was no CDs and there was no MP3s.
Well, and there was no being able to change a flat note you sang.
Sure.
None of that existed, and the stuff that they can do today kind of annoys me because And I'm not trying to sound like an old fart or anything, but if you can go in the studio and change your voice so much, it sounds beautiful, but it's not yours. And then you go out and you market that as who you are. How do you must have to lip sync if you actually had to perform live. Because
yeah, I mean, anymore like specific like auto-tune. I mean, you can have it on a live rig and it's working in real time. It's depending on what
exactly. Well,
okay.
So
it's crazy. I mean, but to your
my point is,
it's not
you
their
had
voice.
to have the talent.
Yeah.
At that time, Karen Carpenter was a big in the 70s, and my voice was similar, had some of the same lower notes, and the way I sang. Sorry. I talk with my hands. So I got jingle work pretty fast.
Yeah.
And the people I worked with were astonishingly generous. So kind. Here's this new kid walking in, youngest, everybody else is they're veterans in this. And they don't have to help you.
Sure.
They could let you, but they were helpful to me in every way they could be. And we all became, all the female singers, there weren't all that many of us. So to get into that club of the most talented singing you could imagine, and their kindness and helping me to do my job better. And it was the best career you could ever have until the 80s came and everything changed, because now you have electronic music and you have a lot of tools so that people who don't really have the talent to write this stuff, all the quality started to go down, but they could do it cheaper than somebody who could orchestrate things. And
sure.
So the business started to change, but I hung in there and did what I do. I did it for about probably 23 or so years.
Wow.
And then I said, it's changed so much that I don't enjoy it anymore.
Mm-hmm. And you did, just for the listening audience, you did, jingles for companies like McDonald's and Wrigley and, gum, like the chewing gum and things like that. So, in case they didn't quite know.
Kentucky Fried Chicken, all the big corporate stuff. And then you had some of the littler stuff. And United Airlines was a big one. I did La Choy, Incredible Edible Egg. It's all on the website,
sure,
actually.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing of it, like, it might sound strange to some people, but those are the things that you don't think about. Just like you were saying, like jingles, what is this? And this is a career, but it's like, it's these little things that are so catchy that somebody's on the other end of that, producing that or making that, and it just sticks and sticks and sticks. So you got to think about people, like, especially from, like your age bracket, there's probably hundreds of thousands of people that know your jingle.
Oh, yeah.
But they may not know Lori Cole. They may,
but
don't
know who
it's an
did
interesting thing to be like, well, that is my career and that's what I do. But yeah, like you say, you're not in the limelight. You're not a pop star, so to speak. That's kind of a crazy. What's the last? Do you remember the last one you did? Was that in the like closer to the 90s or? Okay, yeah. Do you remember the last one you did?
I don't remember the last one I did because I don't know if I thought.
Sure.
Oh, this is the last one.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to just, lower the boom on everything.
Yeah.
I just, I got to do something really fun. And if you love what you do, you're not working.
Sure. Absolutely.
It's, that's really lucky. And there's a lot of talented singers out there. And we're back then, always, there have been talented people. But I got to actually do something with my voice that made me at the time, a lot more money than I would have earned, doing something else.
Sure.
And it wasn't even, I would have done it for free. I loved it so much. It was just great.
Yeah.
And then I segued into, I bought a sound company. So we did live sound, which is totally different than,
Studio to live.
But we provided the sound for, you name a, from, I would say, not so much, now, but back then when I started, and we did everybody. We provided sound for everybody.
Was that in the Chicago area as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did everything at Grant Park.
Okay.
For all the different festivals that were, or Millennium Park, if anybody's listening from Chicago.
Sure. No, there's a couple. Yeah. Got some really good friends that live out there.
Yeah. That's where
Name
I
some
come
of the
from.
artists, Lori. Steve Winwood.
Let's see. Some of the artists. James Taylor.
Oh, just some small people.
Yeah. No, there were really big names that
Yeah.
did this. And, I'm not taking credit for anything. I mean,
Sure.
I got to, the only thing that was great, I got to watch from the wings instead of out in the audience. And, you got to see who was nice and who was just very standoffish, or, there's all kinds of people. And,
Yeah. The live sound world is strange. I've got a really good friend. He was actually the first guest on this podcast, and he kind of rose through the ranks and was lead, engineer for some just monster bands traveling the world, and had built this insane career. Probably could have done it maybe, for the next 30 years. And it just out of nowhere, he had thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And he just decided that he was going to, in his last year of eligibility, he was going to enroll in the Army. And
wow.
was just like, and he had texted me and asked, please don't say anything, and I'm not going to make it public until I'm done with boot camp. And, it was like one of those things I was like, oh, God, that's a big change. Are you sure? We're way into our 30s, man, and he was like, yeah, I'm sure about this. And it was like with absolute conviction. He was like, I've done everything that I think I can do as a live sound engineer. And I've seen, and I've been all over the world, and I still do not feel an ounce of fulfillment. And he's like, I have to do something that has meaning. I've got to do something. If it's not just for me, it's got to have a bigger, grander picture. And it blew me away. I was just like, and I love him to death. And I still, I talk to him all the time, how's it going? And there was kind of some weirdness about it. He did lose a lot of online following, really big following. And after that first post of his graduation day, it was like lost half of his followers, lost some real friends in real life, not on social media. And it was kind of a shame, but it was
friends.
That's what I'm saying. So,
wow.
But that kind of, that was a tangent,
nasty.
But the live sound world is, hearing some of his stories, it's wild. It's just,
if he joined the Army after doing what he did, it was probably really easy for him, because
sure.
people think that, when they go to a show that's doing a tour in their city and they go to the show, they have no idea how much work goes into that.
Mm-hmm.
The lighting, the sound, the staging, if there's dancing, if there's, it's so complex. And it's really hard work.
Yeah.
There's nothing glamorous about it. I've been crawling on the floor, pulling wires, and, at the end of the day.
Heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I owned a sound company, and I'm a woman who owns a sound company, which didn't exist. And a lot of men, especially the ones who've been around, since like the 50s or something, that's how they acted. They're like, you work for, I heard him saying to one of my employees, you work for that broad?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, but it was fun for a while.
Sure.
And I learned a lot about, all of that, which is kind of what you have had to set up here. And the technology has changed even, I mean, it's just unbelievable what my partner, Art, who couldn't make it today, what he can do, and everything is digital.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot of fun doing songs again and being able to, I spent my whole life in the studio basically or on a stage, and in the wings. It's lovely to have this. I recorded so much music over the years just because I loved it. I loved being in the studio. So when we started this, Art and I did, and we started making, doing songs, and we wanted to twist them a little bit, change them a little bit. So it was more our style. And then Steve started, doing the videos. And he had to learn the
I'm an electronics
Camtasia.
engineer. What the heck do I know about making a video? But I learned.
Sure. Absolutely. When did you start? So obviously we've got the jingle stuff, and that's all probably produced and created. And yes, you are the voice behind a lot of those jingles, and then you have your live sound. When did you start, or was it kind of in the same time frame to write music of your own and record that and get, because there's a completely different fulfillment, I would imagine.
I have not been a songwriter.
Yeah.
I wrote one song in my life, and it wasn't bad. I've listened to it. I recorded it like in the 70s, and it could be a lot better, but for my first effort, it was okay.
Sure.
And we're changing it, so we're going to release that.
But we're going
to
try to make it a country western song or change, and because it's my song, I don't have to get permission to do anything. And
Sure.
We'll see what we can do with it to make it more about today.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But that's just one thing. But it's been so much fun to just be in the studio that Art created in a bedroom. I mean, we're like, well, the bed's over here. We can't. And Steve's trying to film us doing live stuff. And
it's like, how do I cut that out?
Yeah.
it's not very glamorous at all, but it's fun.
Yeah. So when did you move out here? So you were in Chicago and you had the live sound thing, but when did you move to the Colorado region?
My parents built a house in Bayfield.
Oh, really? Okay.
In 81. And, loved it, used it. And then in 96, my dad got sick. And my mom didn't want to have to deal with it. It was too much. And so I started coming out all the time to, especially in the summer,
Sure.
make sure the lawn's getting mowed and water is flowing and there's a zillion things. But I permanently moved out here in 99.
Okay.
Where I wasn't, I still had the sound company, but I would commute.
Yeah. Fly back and handle
And
business.
when you're not in summer, then there's a zillion shows because everybody's out and doing stuff. But the rest of the year, I could be out here because there just wasn't that much to do.
Sure.
So I'm, I love it here.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a special place. I like Chicago too, but there's just there's a weird aura about this place sometimes. I mean, I've tried like hell. I think I've said a bunch of times on this show that I've tried so many times to leave, and I don't know what it is, but something always just calls you back. I'm not sure if it's family or friends or small town vibe.
I think those are pretty big reasons to be called back.
Yeah, all of that.
All of that. This is home. Once you found your real home, like the home that's in your heart.
Sure.
I don't want to sound trite, but there's only one place that you're going to feel that way.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I mean, it's sometimes I feel like man, it could have been a place closer to the beach or something. I think
you can go to the beach anytime you want, though, but you wouldn't have this.
Yeah. So you met. So what is Art's last name? I'm sorry. your production.
Art Hughes.
Art Hughes. Okay, and he's your production partner, right? Okay, so explain that process that you guys have, that working relationship. Does he write the music and you write the lyrics, or like what is?
Do cover songs.
Okay.
Sometimes we do original ones, but for the most part, we do cover songs.
Okay.
And he does. I have to tell this story because, like, I've wanted to sing again for a really long time, but I don't play an instrument. So what are you going to do with that?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. And we had a garage sale going on, and all of a sudden I meet this woman and we start talking. You know how it is when you meet somebody and it feels like you've known them forever.
Sure.
So she and I, connected right away. And while we're talking, I told her what I did or used to do. And, she goes, well, my husband, he can't sing. And he's getting really bored just writing music and not having anybody to perform with,
Sure.
So we each needed each other. We each had the thing that the other one wanted. And it was like the universe just said, here you two are. And we'll use this lady, this wonderful lady, she's a dear friend of mine, to, bring you together. And working with Art is one of the most pleasurable experiences I've ever had working with anybody. He's just a wonderful human and very talented. Oh my God. He taught himself to engineer.
Sure.
When he set his studio up.
I've been standing, we'll figure it out.
looking at it, and I still don't understand, how he knows how to do all that. But he's very calm and easy to work with. And we decided that we're doing this for one reason, because we really want to share some of this beautiful music with people. Is it contemporary? It's kind of more universal. We're not doing the music of today necessarily. But we do the songs we like.
Sure. Yeah.
So of course they're not going to be necessarily the ones.
Yeah. But that's music though. I mean, you have to, the stuff that I play with my friends is, completely different than the stuff that I play on an acoustic guitar in front of my kids at a campfire. It's like there's different times and you like different slivers, and not every one person is going to love what you do. But at the end of the day, I think people forget, I forgot about it, having been a musician and traveling and touring, and at some point you start to think, and sometimes you need to like sell a t-shirt to get gas to the next venue and stuff like that. But you lose at times, why'd you start it? You started playing music because you loved it. You started, sitting around Dr. Dan's campfire, by the pool and playing with his son because you heard this song that you really just loved and you couldn't stop trying to figure out how he played it on the record, And so it's like if you lose that, then you've lost everything with music. It's never meant to be for anyone else. It's always meant to be for yourself. And I think you do have to tell yourself that not everybody's going to like this, and that's okay. And it may not be pop culture. It may not be, for today's times and grow to the, the hundreds of thousands and millions of followers, but that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's like it's only ever meant for you. And if it was only ever you and Art that heard this music, then that's also 100% win.
It's the process that we love.
Yeah.
It's not the goal isn't for us. I can't speak for anybody else. If you're doing it to sell it and make money and whatever, that's great. I had a career and it was a really good one. And I was so lucky to have it. So now I feel like all I want to do about singing is do it for the joy of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. That is my only, and Art too. He feels exactly the same way I do. So it makes such a nice partnership, because if it isn't fun, why are we doing it?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But then Steve, who had so much more experience in photography and the whole visual end of things, that he made a video for us for a song. Just
on my iPhone.
Yeah.
Sitting on the couch, just going through it.
Yeah, he had all these pictures that he'd taken, and that was our first song. And he put together just this collage of beautiful places in Colorado, you know, and it worked, I think. You know, our music is really designed to make you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
If you're feeling low, it's going to raise you up. It's true.
Sure.
And I like to, what we started more recently is I want to sing songs that have a meaning to help other people that need the help, or causes or whatever. If we, you know, we'll do regular stuff too, but I want it to be more meaningful.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you have a song. I actually want to bring it up real quick. It was, Shipwreck, right, is the name of it. I want to bring that up real quick because, you know, looking at your page,
it's very soft.
This one real quick. Let me just bring this up.
This song had a lot of meaning to me of, you know, when you're really sad or you've lost someone or whatever is making you, you know, not like your life right now. That's what that's for. And the first time I heard it, I loved it. You know, had to do it.
And I looked at it differently. Spending 25 years in the Navy, these are the kind of feelings a sailor feels when you're out at sea and you just can't wait to get home. You know, like there's no place like home, and that's why it's the ship. And you'll see it's rough seas in the very beginning, and towards the end, you'll see the lighthouse at the end, and it's all calm seas. I made it.
Yeah.
I'm here.
I mean, it definitely, it's got the, you know, that song definitely has a kind of a, I would say, an older feel, right? But it's like it takes you to. For me, I hear things like this,
kind of
like
timeless.
Yes, yeah. But it takes you, and this is the thing I love about music. And when I heard this the other day, it takes you to a certain time frame, and that can be for multiple things, right? For you, it's completely different than when Lori and Art wrote it. And then when I hear it, it's like it takes me back to. Oh no, I'm sorry. When you recorded it, right? You know,
I have to be very careful about not taking credit for something I didn't write.
No, absolutely. But I mean, it's very timeless feeling, but it also takes you to a moment in time, and that's what intrigued me when I did hear it, because I have those songs. I think we all have those songs where they play. And it could be something that you haven't had, you shuffle on your iPhone or whatever for 2 or 3 years. And then that like chord strikes and it takes you to a specific memory, you know, and I love that. So I it's interesting to hear you say that you had a completely different perspective of not only the video, but also what the song made you feel viscerally. And it had an impact completely different than it's impacting me. And so, but it does have a very timeless feel, big, bold, gigantic vocals. Right. And, so you started to get into it. And I just wanted to give the listening audience, you know, a second to say, you know, this is a type of song that you're writing. And so for this song specifically, what spoke to you? I mean, knowing that you want to write songs that uplift people. You want to write songs that
uplift people.
Well, I'm sorry, I say right. I should. You want to record songs that uplift people. So
when I heard it, I really don't remember what was going on in my life, except I wasn't feeling very happy. You know, and it made me hopeful when I heard it. I listened to it really closely. And it spoke to me. You know, that's the thing about music. It speaks different things to different people. But I thought it's a hopeful song because that's what it's talking about, you know. All these things will happen. And I love the video that Steve did because we all go through our lives and that's what the ship, you know, and sometimes we don't reach a port, you know, that we would like to have or like to be. But you do come home at one point.
Sure. I mean, that's.
And you could put spiritual meanings into it. And it has a wide message in it that can be used depending on who you are and what you believe in and whatever. But it's a song about hope.
Yeah.
And how you're feeling that day.
Sure.
You know, there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
And we need that right now. We really need that right now. Everybody, I meet a lot of very unhappy people with everything that's happened, and that everybody's tired and just wants to go home.
Sure.
You know, and so that hopefully rings a bell with them.
Sure.
But that's the kind of songs I like to sing that are hopeful or that have a message that I can really sing out in the way that I want to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so what, I was going to look at, there was one other video that we had talked about, and I wanted to just bring this up because I thought, and maybe, is it, and then I saw your face, or?
Yes, that's
okay.
it. That's it with a lady out the window. It's got a great story before you play it.
Okay.
Steve and I were engaged, and we were going to be getting married, and I decided that the best gift that I could give him would be a song. And I listened to a lot of songs. I don't write, so I just didn't, that was not going to happen. So I started listening just to a lot of music. Which one do I want to sing? Which one will have meaning to Steve? And because we met later in life, there had to be some reference to that. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people, get to a certain age and, they make a different kind of life for themselves, stages of life. But I heard this song, a friend of mine wrote it, actually, and he had somebody do a demo of it because he's just a composer. Mm-hmm. And when I heard it, I went, oh, that's saying everything I feel. So I recorded it and I played it when we got married and we were going to do our first dance together. That was a song that was playing, and I dedicated it to him as my present to him.
Is this going to make me cry, Lori?
It did me.
Did for a lot of people at the wedding. I'll tell you what, there wasn't a dry eye.
Sure,
because a lot of people in life go through what this story tells.
Yeah.
And, you're only just one block away, but you never get to meet that person. But when you do, right off the bat, that's the person.
Yeah. I'm going to hear it now.
And that's Art's beautiful orchestration in the intro.
Intermittent rain, but no rainbow, no lightning in my life, and no thunder, just one ordinary day after ordinary day. And then I saw your face, and my heart began all your life. I knew that somewhere I'd
You have such a rich voice.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
But I was always one block behind you, with the one I want so much, never close enough to touch.
It's very timeless. I mean, like you nailed it. That's such a good, like,
It still brings tears to my eyes when I hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it definitely, I mean, gosh, when I hear you sing, the way you sing, it's taking me back to a specific time period, almost of like, I mean, it helps too that we've got the aid of the visual effect here, but it's a very like cinematic, like older movie that just like
That
you can
could
hear
be
the
used in a
orchestra,
movie.
you can hear
if you've got a rom-com or something.
Yeah.
You could use that or
Yeah.
a part of it.
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting because I can, had I never even met you, I could definitely say, okay, like I can see that she maybe you're not trained, but like you grew up singing this style of music, like you honed your skills around that style.
I did a lot of school.
It's very present though in the way that you sing. Even it's completely different, and so it's really interesting that
Thank you.
that's what that is who you are in the way that you sing. You're not trying to do something that's new age. You're not trying to do something that's not you. It's, but anybody who hears this, they will know that immediately, and they'll hear that. And it's like, and that's why I go back to that comment a little while ago. It's like, this music isn't for everybody, right? But it's perfect if it's for you. And that way that you sing will naturally affect other people that like that style. And it's like, they can take them back. And even though they may not know that you wrote that, that you sang that for Steve, it could take them back to a specific moment in their lives or help them get through something and kind of show this light.
Or they want to use it in their wedding. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. You know what I love about music like this, yours and others, is that they don't forget the law of crescendos. Music is meant to move you. It's meant to ebb and flow. And that's one of the things that kills me with just music in general. It can be any type of genre anymore. We got to get to the point in 5 seconds. I love when an artist has the ability to, and I don't know if you do really much anymore unless you become so famous, but I love when the artist has the ability to actually take time to write a song, to take you through a journey. Like when you get to finally hear a song like that, it's like, okay, he either had a ton of studio time and money, or they just said, you know what, we know that your name, is going to sell this, and they just allow that artist to just do their thing, and it's so beautiful.
Well, I'm excited that it's at least getting out onto, whatever people are listening to my website and all the songs we have on there.
During the summer, we get a lot of hits on this song. A lot.
That's good.
And it's all younger people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's...
But it's timeless.
It's timeless. It jumps, it jumps age demographic, right? You can appreciate it from different age groups, and I think that's... But I do, your comment a few seconds ago about, wanting to uplift, I mean, I can hear it. Everything that I've gone through and kind of just peeked out and checked out, I know that that's there for you. I know that maybe you need it more than the people listening to it. Maybe sometimes you also need to be uplifted by what you're doing. And I can feel that and I can hear that in what you're doing with these songs. And so I think that just stay the course, just keep doing it because it's going to uplift somebody. And if it's just one person.
That's the point. That's the whole point. I made CDs like years ago. There was no internet and any of that. And I would just give it to, if I was talking to somebody, I didn't have to know them well or whatever. And I just give them a CD. And, they'd call me back and go, oh, I thought this was going to be like, oh no, how do I say anything to her afterwards? It'll be horrible.
Yeah.
And they're surprised, and they're like, "Oh, that was really good CD," you know. So I'm just grateful if I can help somebody, or like I said, just raise them up a little bit when they're having a really bad day. Or every song on there will do that. And we have a song, "Savage Daughter," that deals with the Me Too movement. Very personal to me. And we have
Times Like These.
Well, in Times Like These, and that's the latest thing we've been doing. And I want Steve to talk about, how that came about and what it means. And
I honestly, you can, as you're looking through the videos, you can tell that there's a huge, kind of an element that's showcasing your affection of supporting the veterans, right? There's multiple videos over there. I forget if it's a carousel, I think, is when you're shuttling through different still images and things like that. But you can tell that it means something, right? If it's one, it's like, oh, well, this song kind of sounded like, it could cater to the veterans, but it's multiple. And so when I saw that, it seems like these songs are uplifting, but there's another smaller meaning behind, they're uplifting, but who are they uplifted?
Well, this
for?
This particular song was written by a guy I used to do jingles with. And I recorded it. Well, he wrote it right after 2001. He lost a couple of friends in the towers. So it was a very, very personal song for him. And I recorded it back then in 2002 because I had heard it and I thought, this is really meaningful. And I didn't have a way to get it out in the world or anything. I just, like I told you, I would go in and sing songs in a studio and, pay for them. and just, whatever I heard that resonated with me and that song really resonated with me. And when Steve told me he'll tell his story, I said, I got a song for that. We can get this out there and hopefully make more people aware of what's going on. And, you can't make change unless you make people aware of what's happening. And this is a much more pleasant way of telling a very awful story.
Yeah. So, that's the, I can see it, I can feel it, but I was just really curious as to, what's the driving factor around getting this out to the veteran community?
I've lost some friends that committed suicide, and this is going to make me emotional. Since 2016, 22 American veterans have committed suicide every single day. And Lori and I started talking about it, and we found this song. But this was, in the song, it says everyone knows someone. And that's true. Everybody does know someone. You might know that they were in the military, but you might say that they're quiet. They're just quiet today. Well, they're quiet for a reason. Or they don't want to talk about what they did in the military. Or they don't want to talk about what they saw while they were in the military. And that quietness sometimes is a problem. They need to get help. I know I have felt that way, and I got the help. I'm still getting the help that I needed because you can't unsee or undo, or you can't unring the bell. And when you get out of the military, it's, they train you like there's no tomorrow to be there. But when you leave, bye. There's no training to get you ready for civilian life. And it really affects some veterans. And this was our ability. And when I did the video, I go, both Lori's dad and my dad were in the military in World War II. And we used some of our relatives' pictures in there because it was cheaper. I didn't have to buy pictures to do the video. So, but it was like, I want to start from our parents to today.
well, World War II.
Yeah.
I said, let's do, for the video, and let's span all the wars that have happened.
Yeah.
That we know of.
I mean,
that
the Korean
we
War.
have that have actually impacted us.
The Korean War was called the Forgotten War.
Mhm.
Nobody remembers that.
Sure.
And I know veterans that are still alive that lost all their toes because they almost froze to death. So I started in World War II, and I was telling a story. And the story is where we are, goes to where we are today. And you'll see a young man with his head in his hands. And I've felt that way. I've done that. And it's like, there's nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody really cares what I did. Why did I put 25 years of my life or 5 years or whatever the case may be into being in the military if nobody really cares what we're doing?
Sure.
Well, you don't hear it on the news. You don't read it in the newspaper. Nobody's talking about those 22 American veterans killing themselves every day. And this was our ability to get it out there. Gary Sinise's foundation has used it. Mission 22 has used it because they're trying to get the awareness out to people that this is what's happening. We don't want any money for it. We didn't want to. We just wanted to donate it to whoever wanted it. And I'm working on another commercial for another company.
We're not done with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it
And
takes time.
Sure.
but
absolutely.
I want people to hear this and to share it and get it out there so that everybody knows. We need to help these men and women because they're suffering silently. And sometimes during a time of crisis, dialing 911 isn't quick enough.
Sure. Absolutely.
Well, they don't know what to do with you anyway.
Yeah.
So anyways, that was our ability
And
or
we-
my ability to get with Lori's voice to get this out so that, people take notice.
Yeah. So
We have on the video all the numbers they can call when they're in crisis, and so
On the
it's-
original video that we did, Gary Sinise is on the end of it, and it's a glimpse of Forrest Gump, and he's Lieutenant Dan got out of it. He lost his legs, and he came back to real life, and he was able to handle that. He goes, but some people can't. And he goes, and then this is when he was singing in the band, and a news reporter, we got copies of it, and he goes, if there's days that you feel like nobody really cares about what you've done, I want you to remember this day.
because they were doing a concert. for
This day, we care. All of us care, and I want you to remember this day. So when you leave here, don't forget about what's happened here today. And he's making a difference. And this is our attempt to try to make a difference with this.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, that's a big one. That's God, there's so many things, to unpack there. I feel so bad for the men and women that have come home from any, whatever that is, if that's, actually being boots on the ground in a war, or just having gone through it and still, coming or leaving maybe that camaraderie or, coming back to real life or having to adapt to what life outside of the military is, and my father-in-law was a Vietnam War vet, just hearing the stories of, like the troubles of going to the VA, the length that it takes to get things done. It's great that sometimes it's there, right? They do help, but it seems like it's just as soon as you go, you do your service, thank you, bye. And then that's it. Like you said, bye. And it doesn't stop there. There's no layers of how to reenter, there's no layers of prolonged help. It's just like everything always feels like I talk to these veterans, and I've talked at length to my father-in-law, for almost 20 years now. And it's like everything that I hear him say, and he's just anymore, it's commonplace. I got to go to the VA. I got to go to Albuquerque. I got to, whatever. But everything that he tells me, it just seems like a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
We're giving you a Band-Aid. Get out of our hair for another 6 months. Come back and here's another Band-Aid.
Or
And
they make it so difficult and so hard. And, you got to talk to this person, or now you got to go over and talk to this office, and now this office. And it's such a runaround.
And they're in crisis. They
if you're in
can't handle
crisis,
that.
you don't want to be on the computer. You don't want to be watching TV. You just want to be left alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I originally moved to Bayfield because I wanted to be left alone. I couldn't stand anybody walking behind me. I could hear their footsteps. You're always hyper vigilant, and you just want to be alone. Well, the VA makes it so difficult that they just quit. They just stop calling.
Mm-hmm. They
don't ask for help anymore. And it's really not through any fault of their own. It's just they don't understand. I was hurt on active duty, and in 2010, I started tripping all over my feet. I didn't know where my feet were. I couldn't even sign my name. And so anyways, I go to a local doctor surgeon here and told me what he could do to fix it, and it could be fixed. But I still had to report it to the VA. So I go to the VA and see a neurosurgeon, and they go, well, Commander, we're going to fix you. We're going to fuse your neck from C2 to C7. And I go, oh, no, you're not. I mean, that's 1950s technology.
Sure.
I go, why don't you just tell me the truth? You don't have any doctors here that are qualified to do this new surgery. And she's like, yes, that's true. I go, would you put that in writing for me?
Yeah.
She goes, no, if you do this on your own, you got to pay for it all. So I went to my senator and I told him, I go, you're my last stitch of hope. And he goes, no, I'm your first. And from that day forward, my name was mentioned on the House floor. From that day forward, the VA got looked into, and because I have a stick-to-itiveness, I was able to get the operation that I wanted and I needed. I can move my head up and down, and everything works,
Mm-hmm.
and I can walk and talk, and I'm not paralyzed. So I stuck to it, but not everybody does.
Sure. Yeah.
So if they're not going to do it, I'm going to help them.
Yeah.
Whatever help they need, Lori and I are going to lead them in the right direction one way or another. And some part of it's through her music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so you say stick to it. I think another big thing, and this has come up a ton on this podcast, not necessarily about veterans, but I think that just people in general, as veterans included, we need to get past as a society the stigma of saying it's okay that you have an issue, right? You may not know what that is. You may not be able to define what that is. You may just feel off, and that off could take place for the next 6 years. And it's wrong, but it's compounding, right? Every day that you're off, it takes longer to get back to right.
That's right.
And I think that there's a huge stigma with both men and women, but primarily at this point, men are afraid. It's shown as a sign of weakness, especially with the military, right? Like you've been trained to be a badass, right? For lack of better terms.
She heard this from me, I don't know how many times. I can handle this myself.
Sure, yeah.
I can handle it. Well, then it got to a point where I couldn't handle it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But at least because I have a wife and a daughter and a son that care about me and noticed what I was doing or what I was going through, that I got the help that I needed. Sometimes men and women, they just don't have that. And all of us are doing the most that we possibly can to make sure that they get the help they need before the crisis.
Sure.
So that they can already get the tools in their toolbox to handle situations. When I retired, I found out that, holy crap, there's rules out here in real America. My God, I haven't had rules in 25 years.
Sure.
Now the military has rules, but when you're in a war zone or whatever, it's save your butt time. It's not rule time. So it was hard for me to transfer from military life to civilian life.
Sure, I can only imagine. I mean, it just seems like that's. And I would hope that with all of this awareness that's coming to light, that reentry is a big focus. From talking recently with a couple of people, I don't know that it's as big as we would hope. I do think that it's a hot topic right now, and it's said a lot. But I think just like with everything else, sometimes it gets said and it's like it falls on deaf ears, right? And so, I mean, the reentry process is so massive for any individual, no matter how many years they have in, because you are right. I mean, to be without rules or a certain set of rules that are completely different than civilized life, that becomes ingrained into you. And especially like, you talk about an 18-year-old person, a human being. Well, if they're in there for a 4 or 5 year term, whatever they signed up for, like their brain is still growing. They're becoming an adult with all of a sudden these pretty confined set of rules. You can and can't do this, and when it's go time, Richard, it's go.
Yeah.
But when you've put 5 years of learning into a person really, really confined into these certain sets of rules to come back in to go, we should be fine. Like, what do you mean? You pluck them out as a child, and now they're coming in as a young adult, and you expect them to just know?
And they've seen things that we as civilians can't, it's not like the movies.
Sure, yeah.
You hurt their feelings really quick, and it's like, I didn't mean to do that. I worked for the city for 5 years, and I would answer emails or text messages. I would be short and to the point. Either yes, go ahead and do it, or no, that's not authorized, whatever the case may be. I had one young person come up to me and go, "Are you mad at me, sir?" I go, "No." He said, "Well, you didn't elaborate in this."
Mm-hmm.
I go, "Well, we're all really busy. I gave you the answer you needed, and I'm not mad at anybody."
Sure.
But people take you a different way, and you have to learn that in the civilian world, maybe sometimes you have to elaborate and you have to explain, and they just don't know it all the time. So it's a different world, but you have to learn how to live in it and be part of the community.
Yeah. Well, I think that's amazing that, you guys are doing this. So, one of the things is, and not so much recently, but, there's a lot of, with multiple foundations, not necessarily veteran, but also others, like people are getting, rightfully, they're questioning how much of their dollar goes to the foundation, right? And how much of it goes to the person that the foundation is helping. And so there's been all these reports, all these studies. There's some horrific ones out there that are like 50%, some of them are 80, some of them are 90, right? And I do understand the concept of a foundation does have to have a bit of public reach. They do have to promote, they do have to be out there in the face, and they have to maybe have volunteers, but they have to pay a certain amount, and that does cost money, so that you're a notable, like Air Nice is very notable, right? People within the veteran community, Wounded Warriors, people, Fisher House, they know those programs. They only know them because they spend money to make sure that they're promoting so that they can get future donations or continue donations. But a lot of people in the public right now are having huge issues, and one that came up, and this has been a few years back, but was with Wounded Warriors, and there was, I think, state officials called it lavish spending, right? And so those two gentlemen were fired and replaced, and I think that Wounded Warriors is kind of getting its notoriety back.
They are.
Right? They're starting to rebuild, and maybe we took our eye off the ball or whatever the case scenario is, and they're coming back. But it's really weird with the general public. It's like anymore in our culture, it's like if you mess up once, you're done. We're not going to forgive and we're not going to forget. But I've read some things and seen some things that they're coming back and they're doing really good. And so I don't know if you guys have an opinion of if one is better than the other, or if, you're electing to go with this foundation versus that foundation because they've got certain niche pockets, maybe that's reentry or something like that. But for people that are listening that have considered this, if it's $1 a day, if it's a $500, whatever, they look on the internet, and you could probably type, top veteran, programs, and there'd be 25
or more.
And it's like, how do I
know which one is going to get the money where it belongs?
Yeah, and I understand. For anybody listening, these foundations, they do need money to operate, right? But you can kind of do a little bit more deep diving to see, okay, what is this going to, and look at the reports and things of that nature. But it does cost money. So if you think you donate $1, that whole dollar is never going to go to the individual that's being helped by the foundation, because they do have to run. At the end of the day, even though it's a nonprofit, it's a business. They have costs.
And if you have concerns about it, like when I'm talking to all these different foundations with our song, and when I tell them that we're donating it to them, they almost pass out on me. But I ask them, because I was in the military, I asked them the hard questions all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to know more about your organization. I want to know what you're doing. What is it? I don't want to know what your bottom line is. I want to know what you're doing this year for veterans or disabled veterans or veterans of foreign wars, whatever the case may be. What are you actually doing for them? And I make them tell me, or I'm not going to donate it to you.
Sure. Yeah.
But I don't want anything for it. There needs to be more people that are kind of like Lori and I, where I'm not expecting anything from you. But I do expect, if I give, that you do what you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I do keep an eye on it. And I will watch you. And I want to make sure that these vets are taken care of, because, you know, you can't just blame it all on the VA. You know, it's a large organization, and usually the right hand doesn't talk to the left hand. And
Sure.
there's a lot of people in the middle. But there's a lot of people out here in the world that have the means and the capability to help. And a lot of them aren't doing it. And we're just making one step forward to do it. And we have several other songs getting ready to come out, and there's a story behind every one of them. And I want these men and women to know that they're loved and cared for, that we do care, and that we'll be there for them if all they have to do is call that 811 number.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 811 or
That's
it's a new number now, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But it's on our video. But get your friend to call for you, or friends of vets. Keep an eye on your friends. Make a call for them. They'll tell you they're not ready, but you know what? You should know if they're ready or not. It's like, wow, they're really close. They need to get some help. They need to talk to somebody, and I'm not the qualified person to talk to.
Yeah.
And take them in there and get that get that help that they need. But not enough of that is happening.
Yeah.
Well, every VA is run differently. There's no.
Can you come up on that mic, Lori?
There's no. How do I put this?
Adult in charge. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud?
No, there's just. My daughter works for the VA, so I've learned a lot listening to her.
Yeah.
And they're all, like I said, they're all different. She works in a VA where if you need help,
They get it to you.
I mean like that. They'll get you with a therapist. They'll do everything to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish they were all like that, but they're not.
Sure.
And so that's what I think people should push for, is to have all the VAs do things as much the same way, at least in this particular arena.
Mm-hmm.
It would change things. People wouldn't be dying at 22 people a day. So, but it's a huge issue, and all the red tape you'd have to go through and whatever. But I think somewhere, didn't they pass the law that
Yeah, it was
that you could go to any therapist?
Senator Hickenlooper and Senator Bennett got it for the state of Colorado, that you can go to any psychologist anywhere in your hometown or wherever you are
It doesn't
and
have
get
to be
help,
the
and the
VA.
VA will pay for it. So that was one major step forward.
Sure.
At
That's
least
amazing.
for Colorado.
Yeah.
But here's it's good that you do that, but it's like when I ask for somebody to talk to, I want somebody that knows something about the military,
Mhm.
because all my military career, I lied to them. I mean, if you told them the truth, how you really felt about a friend dying, my heart's being ripped out and I feel like crap, you might not be doing your job anymore. So yeah, everything's good. But I'd always answer every question with a question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Doc, how would you feel if your best friend just died? So I never really just come out and told them.
Sure.
I'd always do it with another question. And the person I'm talking to now goes, we knew that. We all know that now. You guys all lied to us. Well, now it's time to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time to get the help. And it shouldn't be stigmatized, or your commanding officer or the higher ranking officer above you should not be making fun of you, should not be making, Brandon's Law? This young sailor committed suicide because he was made fun of because he kept on asking for help. He needed somebody to talk to. Something was wrong, here. Something had happened, and the end result was he committed suicide. Now, making fun of them is not the way to go. And, man up and, tough it out. Sometimes these young sailors and soldiers they can't tough it out right now.
Yeah.
there's something else going on in their life. So,
So that's what, in a nutshell.
Sure. No, I mean, I think it's really good. You know, you can tell that with the videos. You know, you can tell where you're at and why you're singing them. You know, you can tell it obviously with the visual aid behind it. You know that there's kind of a couple of different. I hate to use the word motives, but meaning I would think would be a better word. You know, as to why you're doing this. You know, and I think that everything helps. You know, every little thing, and sometimes taking a leap. You know, we made a joke earlier about this. You know, how many hours does it take to mix these podcasts, right? Sometimes it doesn't matter about the hours because if the ends justify the means, then you're taking that step. And there's a lot of people that would love, or they want to, right? They want to be able to help out, or they would love to, but sometimes it takes absolute courage to just say, I'm making a decision and I'm going to go for it. It may not be the best production. It may not be the best podcast. It may not be entertaining to anybody, but at least I took a leap of faith, right? And I think what you guys are doing is taking a leap of faith. And if it, again, and going back to it, if it helps 1 or 2 or 20 or 20,000, then the ends justify the means. And what you're doing, I think, is, hats off to you guys, because it means something, and it's hard for people to honestly take that leap, and that's why I want to build a place within the podcast realm to where, maybe people can't afford it, but they have something to say, even if it's a talking head and they want to just come out here and, because this for me has been the most therapeutic thing I've ever done in my life. I'm very much like you. I'm a man's man. I can get through this on its own, but after the first couple of conversations, you just walk away from it and there's a very cathartic feeling, and you feel like this relief of like, okay. Even though I'm not talking about my problems, or I'm not sitting across from a vet and them telling me about their problems, just talking in general, being across, feeling the energy from another person across the table. Right. You walk away and you're like, God, I feel naturally better, and I want people to be able to experience that, because I know that there's people that, like in your case, right? I would love for you guys to have an outlet to just truly just digest and discuss top to bottom what the song is about, what it means to you. And there doesn't have to be a music bed behind it. But I wrote this song and to have a conversation, because I know a lot more people than I think that they let on that would love to just love it and also need it. Yeah. It doesn't even, nobody could ever hear it. But for you to say it into this mic and put it out there into the world, that is such a huge, it's almost like talking to a therapist. Yeah. It really is. And so I know that, you doing these songs is therapy for you. There's not a single dark one on here. It may have a dark undertone and you're trying to help somebody get out of the darkness, right? But I know you're not going there to like get out aggression. You're going there.
You can't raise somebody from that dark place if you're there with them.
Sure.
You have to be above them and really feel that way. Yeah. And then that, it's all about, you can't see it, but that energy goes into the person who's struggling.
Sure.
And helps them, maybe have a better day.
Yeah.
Start with one day.
And it can be something that's very simple, like this. I want you to give this to your friend that joined the Army. And when I give those out and I see a vet with a military hat on.
It's called a challenge coin. For everybody watching.
I tell them that I introduce myself and I tell them, I just want you to know, thank you for your service. It doesn't seem like enough. But I want you to know, as long as you have this coin, you will never be forgotten. And sometimes they start crying and whatever. I get a hug and a handshake and so on. But both of us walk out of wherever we are, and we both feel better about everything that's going on in the world. And I've had some instances where they won't let go of me, but it's nobody's doing that. But thank you for your service, because I'm not going to forget about you. And it's better, because I remember getting spit on when I first joined the military. It was at the end of the Vietnam War. And I remember those days too. Thank you for your service is a whole lot better than somebody spitting on you.
Yeah. I would have
Just
to say
a little.
that. Yeah. It's, military or not. I mean, I know that your guys' focus is definitely on this. Like you have a passion for it. You've been there. This is your driving force. But I think at the end of the day, like people just need to be genuinely good human beings.
Yeah.
Right. And even that person's suffering, they're not a veteran. Like it takes you 2.5 seconds to be nice at a gas station.
Say
to talk
hello.
to the attendant. Right. And it's so weird. Like I've had people, I mean, I could have shaken your hand at the door, right, Lori? But I gave you a hug. I barely know you. Right. The first time I ever met you was you let Drew McClure and I go fishing down at your pond. 25 years later, I realized, oh, this is the same person. And all of a sudden you're married to Steve. And I know, I didn't know that about you, but like life is full circle.
Well, and
right?
you watch the videos, it's like you get a sense of what she's all about.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm saying it takes no effort to just be a good person. Now, yeah, you're going to have bad and good days, but
do a kindness for someone. God, I mean, just, move over as a driver. If you're a slower driver, don't plant yourself in the left lane and not care about how many people you're, making
but you have no
drive
idea.
much longer or whatever. But smile at somebody.
Sure.
Just do that and see what you get back. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going through. Like, I don't know what's going through your head right now today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what turmoil may or may not be in your life. So why should I be crummy to you? And I don't know everything that's going on. I may be the one that puts you over the edge.
Sure.
And I don't want to be that person. I want to be able to say hi. And, when I called you to talk to you about this, I mean, it's like I felt like I knew you forever. Well, through Matt, but it was like, I know you. That's why I want to talk to you about this. But I do that with everyone, just as if I knew them for many years. Now let's take care of the problem.
Sure. Yeah.
And even if it's one person at a time, that's okay.
Yep. That's where
one person less feels
that's
like they want to die.
Yeah. The concept of even if it's one person at a time is it has to be one person at a time.
Yeah.
Like everybody wants to donate so it can help multiple. And it's like, look, you have to break this down to the microcosm. Like, if you say everybody knows somebody in that song, right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows somebody. I don't care. I could give 2 shits if you agree with any military action, the military itself, that person on the receiving end of that siren that's going through that's been in the military, that's come back and now living in civilized life, they're a human being.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter their decisions that they made to go into the military.
Well, they made the decision to go in, but they didn't make the decision to do what they did.
Yes.
People way above them. I mean, there was things that I was ordered to do that I thought, I don't want to do this.
Sure, absolutely.
I clicked my heels, I don't know how many times, never made it back to Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like, I don't really want, this is not the situation I want to be in right now, but I have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
It has to start with one person.
Yeah.
And you do know, somebody knows somebody.
Yeah.
And most of the time, unfortunately, somebody knows somebody who's suffering.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, you don't have to be the person to pick up a hotline and flag them in. It can be a simple conversation of like, just asking them. And
are you okay?
Yeah. They might say, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, hey, if you're not, I'm here. I'm a phone call away.
Yeah.
Or I
just want you to know I care about you.
Yeah. Or a text message, right? I mean, it sounds minuscule, but sometimes just to say, hey man, how's it going? Like out of the blue. I'm checking in on you, right? We're supposed to check in on each other. We're supposed to be a community, right? And that's where, it doesn't necessarily have to mean community of 1,000 people. It can be 5 of your best friends. And I'm just checking in on you today. I'm just saying hi.
I haven't heard from you in a couple of days. Are you okay? Is everything all right?
Yeah.
Just wanted to say hi.
Well, it's just something to think about.
Sure.
And, there's no judgment there. You just try to be kind.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we lack a lot of.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's me.
Everybody's mean and they're self-absorbed and
well, it's just people need to look outside themselves and see where they might be able to do some good.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and real quick, and I don't want to harp on it much longer, but if you're mean to somebody, chances are it's rooted in a self problem anyways, right?
Yeah.
You're also hurting. So sometimes just same thing as this microphone, right? You're yelling into empty space. Doesn't matter if anybody ever hears this. Sometimes if you just ask that person how they're doing, again, it goes back to the therapy of a conversation.
It changes
You
everything.
are releasing something
Yeah.
and go, I do care. I can get past my own stuff. And then there might be the opposite response of like, I'm doing okay. How about yourself? Whoa, when was the last time somebody asked me how I was doing?
I know.
You know what I mean? And so there's a really strong possibility that by asking or treating somebody nice, that you also gain something from it, right?
Oh,
So
definitely
You
definitely
gain
do.
something from it.
you might be able to eventually cure your own ailments.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you have more songs coming out. What are we? Are you working on stuff with Art right now, or?
Not right now. Unfortunately, getting our schedules all together, we can, if we're lucky, we'll do 3 songs a year.
Sure.
It's just not a fast.
It's usually Steve going, "Are you going back in the studio soon?"
nagging
I
me.
want some more to do. Let me do a video. Why don't you get in there and go sing? So it's usually me bugging the two of them.
Yeah.
But what's cool about Art is he can play every instrument known to mankind, and it's just magic when
He's a good
he
writer,
puts something
too.
together.
And he's
It's-
constantly teaching himself different ways of, how does this composer I admire?
How
And
did
there
he
are
do that?
tutorials online.
Oh, sure. Anymore, you can learn to do anything.
Yes.
Anymore.
Yeah,
crazy.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's how Steve learned to do videos.
If I didn't know the answer, man, I would just get
You'd
on
go on
YouTube and
YouTube.
somebody's talking about it.
Sure.
So it was, shoot, I can do that.
Pretty
Yeah.
great.
YouTube blows me away anymore. It's just like you hear these company leaders and figureheads like you don't need to go to college anymore. I'm like hold on, hold on, wait a second. Let's you can learn everything on YouTube. I don't know. It'd be kind of hard to learn.
College
open
is
heart
kind of a
surgery.
stepping stone to the rest of your life.
Sure.
And what it really means is you have the ability to stick to it and complete the task. And that's what college is.
Yeah.
Now, I'm an electronics engineer, but being bored and going to work at the city as a the director in charge of water and sewer, but I knew everything about pumps and motors because I was in the Navy and you had to learn that. So even though I was an engineer, I still knew what was going on. So, I mean, all those things you get bits of knowledge from every place you go. Like I'm learning things from you today. I learned things from my son. I mean, it's like we all learn a little bit from someone, but college just makes sure that you stick to it.
Sure. Yeah. I guess my big stick though, again, is that you're still learning. I mean, no one knows who they are. I don't know who I am at my age.
I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow
changes.
up.
Yeah. but it's like you're really, you're asking somebody to take on a huge burden to basically start to determine what they want to do for the rest of life. And that's a huge risk, for anybody. And I think that at 18, 19 years old, like you say, first time you walk into the studio, do you know who you were going to be? You all of a sudden found this thing that you loved. You're like, wow, I love this. It's brand new. And it worked out really well. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that go to college because that's rite of passage, or it's
Yeah.
this next thing that they're supposed to do because their parents did it, or whatever the case
If
scenario
you're
is.
not going to go into a profession such as the law, be a doctor, things like that, there are other kinds of trade schools
Oh yeah,
That are
yeah.
good.
that are
Yeah.
really good. And I'll tell you what, plumbing, being an electrician, you make some money.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Anybody, we all know that because we all use them. And there's other ways to get somewhere.
Sure, no, absolutely. I'm a huge advocate for the trades. I did it for 17 years, made a lot of money. Don't want to do it any longer, but yeah, just kind of a different walk of life. But I'm a huge advocate for the trades, and I'm not opposed to anybody going to college. I mean, do what you want to do. I just think, maybe I think self-exploration is sometimes really good for people. I think that at that young of a mind, at 18, you think you know everything, right?
Yeah.
At 35, you think you know everything. And then all of a sudden, 5 years later, you're like, oh shit, I didn't think about that, And so I think just being aware that even though you've made a decision, whether that's college or trade school or something, it doesn't have to define you, right? It doesn't.
No, and if you get into one and you realize I am not enjoying this at all, life is about making mistakes, learning from them. That's the ticket.
I won't do that again.
Sure.
Learn from them, and then there's other things.
Yeah.
Go on. You're not, just because you made a choice about one thing doesn't mean you're stuck with it for the rest of your life.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's one other thing that we really need to bring up, and she won't do it, I know. So I'll do it.
You're scaring me to do
No, the picture of her singing the national anthem at the Chicago Bulls. She wants you to know that there wasn't one game that they lost while she was singing the Star Spangled Banner.
Well, it's when Michael Jordan was playing.
I was going to say 1995.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, this is back when they were in their heyday, huh?
Yes, and Michael Jordan was lovely.
Yeah. That's
No,
awesome.
really, he was a really nice guy.
Really?
Yes.
This is pretty darn cool. So this is the book. I did want to. So is this sort of a...
This is a book that my mother, with the help of a couple of people,
Sure.
did at my urging.
Yeah.
And I write in there in the beginning, how the book came to be. But it's done like a scrapbook, and it's a gorgeous book, as you can see. It's like something you'd expect to see in a bookstore. So it's about. I told her, this is you are the last person alive,
Old time radio.
except maybe Rosemary. But anyway, you are. I said, all these memories you have and all these things you know about the golden age of radio, because that was a time, that was an era.
Mm-hmm.
These are diamonds. Do something with it, tell your story.
Sure.
And, it's a really good book.
These two writers did 150 hours of interviews with her.
52 hours of interviews. And I have, all the stuff. And most of the pictures and everything came from
Her scrapbook.
Her scrapbook, yes.
And it's called Acting Her Age.
10 years as a 10-year-old.
Yeah. I read a little bit about it online. I didn't see the book itself. I mean, it just seems...
Well, that's for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's
a fun book. You'll get a kick out of it.
We started this and I was, just so blown away that, radio had such an impact on people at that time of their lives, right? But
yes.
You want to talk about a very selfless act, right? There's no face to this. It's a voice actor, and so you get everybody's thoughts running wild, right? And so she capitalized on that time frame, that time period. And it's really neat. I think that she started out, whether she wanted to do it or not, whether it was just a job, that you went into.
I wanted her to realize the value of what
How
she
important she
produced.
was.
Sure, yeah.
And what she did for kids all over America. It was played all across America.
There's a radio station in Oklahoma that plays on Sunday, plays the Little Orphan Annie show.
Yeah.
On the back of this, there's 3 shows on a CD.
Yeah.
So that people can actually hear her.
Yeah.
And that was what this book was about. It was about her discovering that this wasn't nothing.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
This was something.
Well, that's what it was. I mean, it had such a...
You were, even though it was just your voice, you were influencing children all over who still, the ones who are still left from that generation, or ones that are just like one generation, because she did it for 10 years. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, the radio announcer that does the show called Shirley at home in Chicago, called us and tied us into this phone call. And Shirley talked to a 9-year-old that was listening to the show. And she was 84, 85 then?
little bit older. But
Yeah. But she did the voice of Little Orphan Annie and talked to this 9-year-old. And this 9-year-old just knew in her heart she was talking to Little Orphan Annie, who was 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I mean,
It's
Lori and I
true.
got tears running down our
Yeah.
cheek. I
and
mean,
then
it's like, I
the
couldn't
dad
believe it.
got on the phone after his daughter he just says, I want to thank you to my mom. He says, I can put on, because they were playing her shows, I can let my daughter sit and listen to the radio and I don't have to worry about what she's going to hear. He said, thank you for that. And, you know, those little things, like you were saying earlier,
It made Shirley
made
feel
my
good about
mom
herself.
feel like, wow,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. It did matter.
'Cause
What you were doing
nobody
all those
ever
years
thanked
did
her.
matter. Wow.
You know, they gave her a paycheck and,
Sure.
see ya.
That's awesome. I can't wait to. I'm going to show. I want to look through this with my daughter. To be
Well,
honest
the
with you.
Christmas
Yeah.
story, the
You know,
movie, they talk about, the decoder ring and so on. So I wrote a letter to them. Well, the original house that they filmed that movie in is now a museum for the Christmas story.
Oh well.
And they've got one of these books in there. And we kind of set them straight about what the commercial really was. It was just an excerpt to the next story.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was talking to her and asking Shirley questions, it's like, Mom, tell him the truth. I hated Ovaltine. It was terrible.
that was the sponsor.
Yeah.
But she always held the party line.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it was fine.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm really happy that you guys came in, and I'm really excited to have gotten a little bit more detail around why you guys are doing what you're doing. And I think
Thank you for letting us
Yeah.
do this. This was wonderful.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
fun.
I think, again, I go back to the, every little blurb about there is everybody has a story, right? And so I'm just hoping that whatever you guys are doing impacts the next person so that they can continue that story and tell that story and let that story be heard.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's all cyclical. It all comes back around, right? It sounds crazy, but I mean, I go back to it. It's like,
totally true.
yeah, it's like, it's this big, gigantic life. And I think that, we owe it to each other to make sure that somebody has a platform to move, right?
Well, one act of kindness will lead someone else to do an act of kindness. And, that starts building on itself and becomes a better society.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just takes one person to start it. And we're all of us, everybody sitting here is
You're
trying to start
putting
that.
beautiful energy out into the world.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
We need that.
Lori, Steve, thank you guys so much. I
Thank
really
Thanks for
you
having
appreciate
so
us.
you.
much.
All right.
Thank you.
See ya.
Have you ever felt
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah.